This was. So I think the solution at that time that many people for Central Asia was supposing, promoting in the 1990s was you have two choices. In all countries with different ethnicities, including Afghanistan, you have two choices. You can go to integrate people on the basis of democratic development. One man, one vote, all equal as citizens to the law. This way, a person is become a unit. Or you go and parcel out the quotas to different ethnicities. You perpetuate the division. On the first case, democratic solution will bring you eternal integration. On the quota system, probably will perpetuate the division that you have. Now, NGOs are doing good, but NGOs should need to be supported by the state itself. In many cases, NGOs are looked as opposition in many countries. They think that the NGOs is another form of opposing the policies of the government. I don't know. It depends how much support NGOs can get from the state. Then they can make a difference. Yeah.
Additional questions, comments? Okay.
Listen.
Yeah, my name is Mark. I just wanted to thank you for coming and everything. It's wonderful hearing you speak, but I'm from the United States, and my question is more in terms of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And obviously, the war in Afghanistan is the longest war that the United States has been in for some time now, or in the history of the country. And my question for you, as you spoke about peace and how violence is a quicker option to take away from the sustainability of peace, what you find a lot, especially in the military operations in Afghanistan, is that there are just some regions that they've never really been able to bring peace to, and that that the country itself is divided into many different ethnic groups and many different parts. And so I'm wondering if maybe through cultural diplomacy tactics, or maybe through other types of initiatives, is there a way to unite parts, or to at least extend peace farther from the Kabul region of Afghanistan?
Well, I can tell you one thing, that there are so many myths about Afghanistan. One myth is that Afghanistan is a collection of different ethnicities, different tribes, different. Therefore, they think that in Afghanistan always there was internal strife between tribes and others. Well, this is not true. Afghanistan is an atomized society, I would say. It is the tribes and the regions, other organizations, institutions, are the framework through which the individuals seek their interests or to protect themselves, why the government cannot provide that. Other than that, I think the worst thing in Afghanistan historically was when there was no central government. That's a nightmare. So they want a government. However, if that government cannot deliver, then people go to their local institutions to protect themselves in order to secure their interests. That is something that happened to us. However, it does not mean that these small elements, whatever you call it, local institutions, they are the drivers of division. No, they're not. Because that can, even during civil wars, you do not see a call or an effort for secession. Even during the civil war, everybody was, fighting for Kabul, not for their regions. And in the 19th century, for more than a century, the British Empire and the Russian Empire, when they failed to dominate the country, they wanted this country to be a buffer to block the clashes between the two titans, two great powers. That small country actually played that role. However, in the 20th century, That small country fought both empires successfully. At the beginning of the 20th century, the British Empire, and toward the end of the 20th century, the successor of the other empire, the Soviet Union. But still that country is there, and they have a border. No one wants to do secession. Yes, individuals, during the Civil War, during the occupation of the Soviet Union, individuals tried to legitimize their leadership by invoking ethnic references. It does not mean that they are therefore you have to look at the dynamics of power in the country in order to explain that thing. The nationhood of Afghans are not based on ethnicity, not on region, not on geography. It's by history. It is like Ernest Renan said, it is the will to persist together, because that's the only way that they can persist. Afghanistan is located geographically on the fault lines of three regions: Central Asia, West Asia, and South Asia. But historically, they were faced the same fate, same thing. With regards to the peace in Afghanistan, we have to do, what is peace in Afghanistan? What is the victory? What's the military victory in Afghanistan? If you are looking at the intervention of the US-led operation in 2001, which came, people saw it as a rescue operation. Okay, it achieved its objective in 2 months. It was launched to disrupt or destroy the network of Al-Qaeda, and to remove the Taliban who were supporting them. In 2 months, the Taliban regime was overthrown, and then the Al-Qaeda network was on the run. So it was achieved in 2 months. If you are talking to this, it was achieved. Now, after that, some people are saying, okay, if the United States or the international community with by deployment of 150,000 troops could not bring peace to Afghanistan, how can they bring peace in 10,000? I hear it in the media. This is a very, very fallacy, is very, not a very logical, kind of a rational or a logical argument. If we are looking at what was achieved in Afghanistan in the past 15 years as the establishment of indigenous capacity, that was the reason, not to fight the war to the end. Today, those troops are not in Afghanistan. But the indigenous capacity was built in 15 years. They are doing the war now, despite the fact that they are facing the odds, but they are fighting. They suffer, they get killed, many economic institutions are destroyed, but they are fighting. So if that is the reason, if the reason was to build indigenous capacity in a country, to do the war, to respond to the threats themselves, so that was achieved. Now, why the war is continued? This is a war that is not only local, it's regional, it's global. So that the solution can come through all these dynamics. Once Afghanistan history did not begin in 1978. Afghanistan was at peace with itself before that, at peace with its neighbors, at peace with everybody. Once I was talking to an old man in Ghazni, I said, he was complaining. I said, what the international community should do that will convince you to make you happy? I said, no, this is a very wrong question you are asking me. He said, what I want, the international community, nobody else can do it for me. I said, what is that? He said, well, if they cannot do it, why I should tell you? I said, no, just for my own information. What is that you want? He said, okay, I will tell you. He said, can the international community, those who are involved in Afghanistan, can undo what they did to us? I said, what do you mean? He said, look, we are a peaceful country. First, the Soviet Union came and invaded us to prop up a small communist government. And they fought everybody in Afghanistan. They destroyed the agriculture, killed 150 civilians, 1.5 million civilians. They destroyed all institutions. And then other forces came from the world to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan and made it the last battlefield of the Cold War. In order to fight the Soviet Union, they brought all unwanted people here from all over the world, the fundamentalists. They brought them to fight this. And then the Soviet Union collapsed. And everybody left. And we were left, and we thought that now our brothers will come to help this broken nation. They came, but they came to how exploit this nation, this broken nation. So now he said that they cannot do what I mentioned. Can they undo what they did to us? So in Afghanistan, it is not a civil war. It is a war with terrorism. It is war with competition in the region. It is war with competition globally. That's why it is very, and academically, there's a leadership, they call it complex adoptive leadership. When variable changes very quickly, and things morph from one form to another form. Morphing, yes, things morph. When they morph, then what you have? You have paradoxes. You have competing elements. Like, for example, you are facing so many problems that in these problems, if you solve one, the side effect makes, complicate the other one. How you do this? It takes a very, very long time. It's a very complex kind of a leadership, not only locally, but regionally and also internationally. That's why I'm saying if you look in Afghanistan, you look in that kind of context. Not that today one district would fall to the Taliban, the other way, the other districts. Not that way. It is, I suggest that you look at the some literature on the complex adoptive systems, complex adoptive leadership and systems. That will probably give you the complexity of situation in Afghanistan and the region.
Do we have a final question or a final comment from the ambassador? Okay, so on that note, then I guess let's express our sincere gratitude to the Honorable Ambassador Ali Jalali.
Thank you very much.